With this project, we're going to be exploring a couple different things. The first thing is you're actually going to be selecting color to portray a mood, which the color meanings are right here. They are attached to the project. Each color does have a positive and a negative, so just make note of that. And you are going to be creating 8 custom shapes, and this is going to be done based on our previous project, how we learned in the pen tool. So you're going to utilize what you've learned in those pen tool assignments to create your own custom shapes. You're also going to be doing different blend modes within Photoshop. So we'll talk about that once we start on the work. And you're going to also edit some metadata, and that's to add your name as the creator, the artist of that work. So let's switch to Photoshop. And in here, we're going to create a new file. So new file. Now up at the top here, you're going to see that there's a few templates depending on what you want to do within Photoshop. So for us, we're going to switch to print and look for a preset that says tabloid 11 by 17. Click on that. And here you're going to decide what orientation do you want your work. Do you want it a portrait like this, or do you want it in a landscape? So I'm going to choose landscape. If you would like to do the other, that's fine. Then in the color mode, so there's a couple different color modes here. The two main ones that we focus on are RGB, which is red, green, and blue, and CMYK. So RGB deals with LED lights, so red, green, and blue LEDs. This is for if you're creating artwork for TV or a screen, a computer monitor, stuff like that. If you only plan to show it on a screen, RGB is totally fine. If you wanted to print, CMYK is where you want to switch it to. So cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. We don't need to decide right now. I'm going to leave it at RGB because we can always change it later on. Then we're going to name our file. Make sure you include your initials and the name of the work. Abstract art. And then create. And if you ever needed to change, let's see if I remember. Um, I know there's a way to change your color settings. Is it here? Maybe not. I'm not sure where it's at, but I know there's a way to change it to CMYK. If I remember later, I will definitely bring it up again. So for right now, we have our workspace set up. We have our background already here. We're going to leave that alone. So for this, we're going to use the pen tool. So on your left, find the pen tool. Make sure that you are set to shape, not path. So we want shape. Your fill doesn't matter right now. We're just going to be creating shapes. Later, we'll worry about the color part. The stroke, we are going to turn that off. So the other thing I want to point out is you do have custom shapes here. If you right click, there's a couple different shapes already here. By default, most of you might have the rectangle tool like this. If you right click, you can select custom shape, and up in your options bar, you'll see that you have different shapes already here. There's like presets, but we're gonna make our own today. So switch back to pen tool. So I would stay away from trying to create shapes that already exist here. So just so you know. I am going to create a triangle, even though there's a triangle here, but I don't want mine to be equal like this. So I'm going to create my own triangle. And then before I click return, I want to go to edit, define custom shape, and name my custom shape. Click OK. And the way you know that you did this correctly is if you go to Window and go to Shapes, it's going to open your Shapes panel like that. And if you notice, it's this little icon, so you can always close it if it gets in the way and then reopen it. here's the triangle that I just created. So, and then the next one, so let's close it because I don't want it to be in the way. So I'm going to create more of an organic shape for the next one. So something like that. Then do not hit return. Instead, you're going to go to edit, define custom shape, and let's name this blob. Click OK. Let's open our shapes. Here's the blob. You can also, let's say you create a shape and you want to edit a point. If you switch to this arrow down here, if you right click, make sure it's the direct selection tool. You can click on points and move them. So you can always alter your shapes as well. Back to the pen tool. Let's see. I'm gonna create different shape. Edit, define custom shape. Let's see. Can't really think of names. If you want, you can put shape 1, shape 2, shape 3. Edit, define. So you get the point. So you're gonna keep doing that for all 8 shapes. Once you're done with that, you can delete all of this and you're still going to have all your shapes here. So it's not a big deal. So the way this works is, let's say I want to do this little odd star. So I go to my custom shape because I'm gonna, now that I define these custom shapes, I can now go to my shapes and draw my shapes out as many times as I want in different sizes. So if you remember in our project, we do need to use the shapes that we created, and we need at least 2 variations of each shape. So if you have 8 shapes, 2 variations of each, that's about 16, I think. And so, for example, if I want to use my star, I can do a star like this. And if I want a second variation, I can do a stretched out one. Now to change the color, you just need to double click here. So this little layer thumbnail, the little box, double click, can change the color. So this box right here, double click, change the color. And then the other part was the blending mode. So if I overlap this a little bit, so your blending mode is this right here, this little bar. So if you click, if you hold your mouse, it says set the blending mode for the layer. So if my Oddstar 2, which is this one right here, I can go to the blending mode and I can scroll through different ones and see how it affects the layer. There's also depending on the colors you choose, sometimes it'll act like if it's cutting out the shape, which is completely fine. So I want you to select, I believe I said, so let's do that one. I think I said 3. Yes, at least 3 blending modes. And it can be in any shape that you'd like. So I can do a blending mode for that one, then go to my shape tool, and let's say I want to do this little lump shape. Whoops. Go back to my custom shape. Do this one, and let's say I want this one in the back. And I double click here, and I want to choose a different color. And this is where the, your color meaning starts because you need to portray some type of mood. So depending on the mood you want to portray, that's where you're going to start choosing color depending on that mood. And then I can look through these. So the blending mode isn't as effective if you're doing the mode on the layer that's on the back. It's more effective if you put it to a shape that's on top of another shape. So like this one is on top of the lump shape. So I can go and I can see, well, what does that do? So I have two different color modes going on there, or blending modes. See right here, linear light, linear dodge. So you're just going to do that for all your shapes. Once you are done creating your artwork, and remember you can always move it around after, rotate it, do whatever you need to make it look nice. Then once everything's done, you have all 8 shapes, 2 variations of each, 3 blending modes. Then you're going to go to your metadata. So if you go to File, down to File Info, and if we switch to make sure you're on the basic, the very first one, this is where you put in information of your work. It tells you the date you created it, the last date you modified it, and what format, what application you used, everything. So you're going to put your title here. So abstract art is the name. And here is where you put your name. Oops. Now, those are the only two I'm going to require for this. For a lot of artists, whenever they decide they want to copyright their work, this is where they go to put all their copyright information. Or if it's public domain. Public domain means you put it out on the internet, anyone can use it, and they don't need to pay you or there's no licensing that they need to get. So we'll just leave that alone. We only need the first two for this, and then click OK. And it should save it. So if you go back to file info, it's still there. So you are going to, what I'm going to require you to do is these shapes, when you create all 8 shapes, I want you to take a screenshot of those shapes and turn that in along with the JPEG of your artwork. So to export the JPEG, in case you don't remember, it is File, Export, Export As, make sure your format is JPEG, click Export, and make sure that you put it on the correct folder. And the title should already be there if you already named it at the very beginning when you created your space. So save that and turn in the JPEG along with your screenshot, and that's all.